Now, what I want to teach you is whatever we've learned in Agile Scrum, I want to give it a practical approach, and I want to show you a tool called Jira, Jira. Um, if you want to practice this, you can also practice it yourself. You can, I mean, I just registered myself for a trial version. So they offer a 14-day trial version. You can practice based on what I teach at home if you wish to. So, and what I've done is I've not configured anything in Jira because I want to show you everything as to how do you configure this. Although at work, you're not going to be configuring this, but the reason I want to configure this in front of you is I can help you brush up your concepts of a release versus a sprint and show you exactly how this happens at work. So the very first thing I want to do is I want to set up a project. So I'll click on create. I don't want to create this. I want to create a new board. I want to create a Scrum board. I click on next. The name of my board, I want to give, we'll do a e-commerce project. We've talked enough about online banking. E-commerce, self-service, I'll say e-commerce portal. This, I don't need a board. I basically want to create a project. View all projects, create a project. So I want the name of my project is e-commerce portal. It automatically assigns a key, which is like a password. So it's EP. I don't want Kanban. I want a Scrum template. And I'm creating a project. So this is the very first thing that happens is your project is set up. Now for XYZ reasons, I'm not able to see releases here. So I'm just going view all projects. I'm just renaming. Let me delete this to trash. I have a project that I am project settings. I'll give it a name e-commerce portal. Save. E-commerce portal 1. Ah, all right, so I've just created a project. Now, every project has a backlog. So the very first thing that is done is you want to start adding back items to the backlog. But before we start adding items to the backlog, another thing that I want to show you is I want to show you the configuration of releases. So you see here there is something known as releases. So if I go to releases, they're referring it as a version. Because what is a release? Every time you release something, the version of your application changes. So I want to create a version. So now I want to show you a realistic scenario that if I am at work, how am I going to create the releases? So let me first open up a calendar. All right, so let's say we are in September. Now, a realistic, normally the best way you have your releases are, you normally have your releases on Wednesdays. That's a good release day in Agile Scrum. Why do you want to have a release on Wednesdays? Because if you have it on a Saturday or a Sunday, people have to work on weekends. You don't want to do that. If you have it on a Monday or a Friday, uh, people tend to have people tend to have long weekends. So if they're going for a day off, they'll have either as Sunday, Monday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, or they'll have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There are many long weekends which comes on a Monday or a Friday. So they want to avoid the days where there are probability of people not being at work. The day where most people are at work always is a Wednesday because that is in right in the middle of the week and it's going to be a rare that people are not working on Wednesdays. So normally a good idea is to have your 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 releases on Wednesdays. So let's say I'm starting up my brand new Agile project and my first release that it's a monthly release, right? So if it's September, my first release and it's a 4 week release. So I'll want my and I'll let's say my sprint cycle will start from 5th of October and it's a 4 week release and it's going to have 2 week sprints. So sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3. So if I have my release on a Wednesday, what is the first day of my sprint? What day will my sprint start of the week? What is the first day of my week? My sprint will always start on a Thursday because my release is on a Wednesday. Are you all following me? So my sprint 1 will be October 1. It's a 2 week sprint. So my sprint 1 will be October 1 to October 13th. Sorry, October 14th. And my sprint 2 will be October 15th to October 28th. And my release date will be October 28th. So my first release is going to be so my release name is going to be October 28, 2020. What are the dates of my release? The dates of my release is it's going to last from October 1st. It's going to end on October 28th. And I don't want to put a description. That's my first release. What's my next release? I'll have to check the calendar for the next release. So it ends on October 28th. So my next release cycle will start on October 29th. And from October 29th, it's going to go October 29th to November 10th will be my first sprint. And November 11th to November 25th will be my second sprint. Now later on, I'm going to realize that November 25th is somewhere around Thanksgiving. So I might have to change the release date to accommodate everyone's schedule. So you can do that. So then November 25, 2020. And I'm going to create one more release for you so you just understand the concept of that. My next release will start from November 26th. My first sprint will be December 9th and December 23. So right before Christmas. So I'm going to name this as December 23, 2020. Are we good on the concept of creating releases? Any questions? I'm going to have a release on this day. Okay, I take that as a yes. So my releases are defined. Now I want to define my sprint. But before I define my sprint, I'll have to add a backlog. Otherwise, this tool is not going to allow me to do so. So I'll first have to start adding backlog. So now this is an e-commerce portal. So what do you think would be some of the backlog items? Anyone? This is an e-commerce portal. So I'll first start with the basic one, create new user account. So this is how simple I can create. This is as simple as I can create a backlog item. Then if I want to keep creating more, I simply click on create. It's a story. And then the next one I want to do is uh, allow user to log in. So I've added another user story. Then I can add a third user story. So I mean, it marks it as a story, but it's not yet defined into a story. This is just a backlog item. Site user can browse products. Site user can view a single product detail. Site user can add product to a cart. I need to create a lot of backlog items just so that I can show you how to work on this. Site user can view cart details. Site user can edit cart. Site user can check out cart as a guest user. Site user can check out cart as a logged in member. Site user, now it's no longer a site user, we can say logged in member can see order history. Logged in member can see order, shipment, tracking, and so on. You can logged in user can see coupons. online only versus in store only versus use anywhere. So like this, you can end up adding lots of backlog items. So this is, so you create a release, you create your backlog, and now you want to start creating a sprint. So now these are important concepts I really, really want you to understand. And hence it's important to understand the dates. What are the dates of my release? My date of my first release is it starts on October 1st and it ends on October 28th. So, and it's a 2 week sprint. So my sprint one is going to go from October 1st to October 14th. Create a sprint. The very first thing, now what happens is that you do your business prioritization meeting, right? So you open up this to the SMEs. SMEs are going to say that I need to be able to allow user to log in. So basically, the first thing you want to do is in that is you assign that, let's say, to a sprint, and that will allow you to start a sprint. So when you're creating a sprint item, your sprint name is, this is your sprint one, and what release it is? October 28. Duration, you want this to be 2 weeks of duration. When does it start? It starts on Thursday, October 1st. When does it end? It's going to end, it tells you it's going to end on 14th. And basically you want to click on start sprint. So what that does is it's going to assign that user story to that particular sprint. Now, what is a sprint two?
I had a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, perfect.
Uh, I know you might have mentioned it somewhere, but can you tell me the sprint, um, like the exact duration of the sprint? What's the general, um, how do ask this?
How do you define whether it's a 1 week or 2 week or 3 week?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
general
yeah.
time frame, right?
Or who makes that call?
Yeah, so it's basically the Scrum Master and the team members, they define what would be a sprint cycle. So the different companies, they do that differently, right? So yesterday I went through different scenarios where you would have a monthly release and you have your 2 week sprints. So in a release, you'll have two sprints. Other scenario was you have a monthly release and each sprint is a 1 week long sprint. So then you'll have four sprints in a release. Another scenario is you have one release, one sprint, 3 week long. So it's the Scrum Master and some of the other members who would define what would be our Agile framework structure, and you work accordingly.
Discuss the this sprint duration in the business prioritization, do we?
No, not in the business priority. See, business prioritization meeting and everything happens when everything is defined. You'll say, I have a monthly release, you'll have a 2 week sprint, everything is defined, and then you start your Agile cycle. Your sprint duration and everything is defined before you begin your Agile project. You have to come up with definitions as to how long will be my releases, how long will be my sprints, and accordingly you design everything in your software. So you don't once you start your release, you do not keep changing your sprint duration. It's a fixed sprint duration for every releases. Does that help answer the question, Jay, or still confused?
Now it makes more sense. Like I was just confused, like how even before bringing up to the business production meeting, like is
No,
it
no, it is done well beyond the everything. You don't. It's done in advance.
okay? Okay.
All right. So basically, then you're going to add couple of You're going to add couple of user stories to sprint 1. Now I want to create another sprint. And then in order to start a sprint, in order for me to add something, I'll have to add the user stories and start a sprint. Now my current sprint is started, so I won't be able to start another sprint because currently this I'm in sprint 1. But when you configure your sprint, it will always be according to the dates. So your sprint 2 will be from October 15th to October 28th, and that's going to bring an end to your sprint 2. Any questions till now? So we have created
I have
releases.
I have one just as a scenario, right?
Yes.
We have already decided the sprint days and everything, right? Now something on the prioritization list that the SME says that okay, I want to do something, but you know that, or you don't know whether it will be done in that sprint period or not. Do
Okay.
you is there any possibility, or is there a leeway there that you change your sprint days or push back the project or the prioritization?
So that is what, so see, if you think that it's not going to be done, it gets converted into an epic. The only reason it would not be done is because it's an epic, it's a large thing. I'll tell you, I've been in sprint planning meetings, okay? I've been in sprint planning meeting where I walk through the developers and I tell them that this is a user story. And once the developer reviews that, they tell me that, you know what, it looks simple, but there's a lot of technical implementations in this. And I don't think we'll be able to do this in one sprint. So then what they tell me is, let's divide this into 3 stories. So then I'll tell them, you know what, can you tell me the boundaries of each story as to what will be done in every story? And then they literally babysit me saying, let's create a story. First story is this, second story is this, third story is this. And they literally describe me the entire verbiage of the story because it involves some technical work which I'm not familiar with. And then I convert the previous story as an epic that I thought is one story, and then I create child stories to that. Make sense?
Makes sense. Okay.
Okay. Now, another thing, you see my sprint 1 is a part of October release. So what I'm doing is this sprint 1, I need to assign this sprint. And how would I do that? Oh, so now, so the way this works is, what happened to the user stories that we added? Did they get deleted? Weird. I see them here. Sprint 1, October 28. Let me delete this sprint. There we go. Something was wrong. So now what I need to do is all all the stories which are in sprint 1, what part of release they are? They are in October 28. So I can move these stories also. I want to assign these stories to October release. It's not allowing me to associate that, but I'm sure you can do that. Let me just get rid of this, get rid of these, go back to my backlog. There we go. So what I'm doing is I'm dragging my stories to, because although these stories are part of sprint 1, but ultimately my sprint 1 is a part of October release. So if you want to see what are all the user stories that are going to be released in the month of October, you can go to releases. And if you click on this release, it's going to show you all the entire scope of that release, which will be sprint 1 and sprint 2 when you keep adding them. So it'll just be a part of this release. Okay. Are we all good now? I've created a release. I've created a backlog. I've assigned my stories. I've assigned my stories to a sprint, and I've assigned my stories as a part of that release. I also want to add one more story, which was regarding the coupon here. And I'm going to move this coupon as well to this release. Now, I want to show you how a real sprint works. There is something known as a sprint dashboard. So when you go to this active sprint, what is your active sprint? It talks about all the stories that you have for that. So when you are in your sprint planning meeting, when you are in your sprint planning meeting, you are going to show them this dashboard saying for this sprint, this is the work that we have. Now I want to open up one user story and I want to show you how to write a user story in this tool. So one thing that you would have done before coming to the sprint backlog is you would have completed the user story. So this was the word that was in the backlog. Logged in user can see coupons. Online only versus use anywhere. Now this is a very rough thing. I don't want to use it. I want to put this into the format of a user story. So I'm just showing you a user story that I have it ready for me. So I'm just going to do a copy and paste to save some time. So basically these three things, which I'm going to write first, not here. So we say as a registered online user, I want to view the following two categories in my account coupon sections so that I can clearly distinguish between coupons that can be used anywhere versus coupons which are online only. Now this is a huge state. This is really long. So it may not display everything here because of the limitations of your characters. So you can try copying this everything so you have it with you, and you can just delete some so you can only show something here as the main title. But then when you are in the description, you want to type everything once again in the description, and over here underneath in the description, so this is your description. You're typing as a registered online user, and underneath that you want to type in acceptance criteria. And what will be your acceptance criteria? Again, I'm going to be pasting from what I have from my Word document. And I'm going to show you what we wrote. and there is an option. There is an option where I can attach. So if I want to attach, I'm trying to attach here a wireframe. And if it allows me to copy this, I can try to paste this here. Okay. So this is just an overview, but my real essence of my user story is in the description aspect. So as a registered online user, I want to view following two categories in my account coupon section in desktop and mobile version. Use anywhere versus online coupons. So that I can clearly distinguish between coupons that can be used anywhere versus coupons which are online only. And then acceptance criteria, system shall display the following two categories in my account coupon sections, use anywhere, online only. And then all the other acceptance criteria you have here, and then you also attached the wireframe here. So that's how you would end up writing a user story. So pretty much this is the to-do work for your sprint. Now, I'm not liking the swim lanes. They see here in progress and done. I want them to be better defined than what I see here. So I can go here and I can go to board settings. So rather than in progress, so I want you to tell me, this is to do. Now, once the developer picks this up, what should be the status of this? What should be the status of this user story? Currently, it's not assigned to anyone, right? So it is to do. But when a developer starts working on it, what is the status of that story?
Pending?
Not pending. Pretty close.
Assigned.
Good try. Assigned. Good one. I could say in, I'd say in development. This gives me a perfect status of where the user story is. Once the development, once, how would a QA know? How would a QA know that the developer has completed this and I can start testing? What could I create? A lane. I want to create another lane saying,
Ready for testing.
great, love that. You could say ready for testing, or you could say development complete. You could have either of them. But this is good. I can say ready for testing. And that should be here. What next do I want? Once the tester tests is testing it, how do I know that current story is getting tested? I want to add another column. In testing. Why is it not showing?
Testing.
Not sure why it is not showing. Let me go back to the active sprint. Ready for test, in development, ready for testing, done. So I want to add hmm,
It's the other option.
no, it should, I mean, testing in progress. It does not have anything to do with the name. Let's see. So it's not allowing me to do this. I think it might have some limitations on number of swim lanes it could create, which I don't think should be the case. I should remove testing from this, modify workflows, remove. Status. Let's say testing yes. So it's adding as a status here. It's not adding as a column. That's the problem. Add a column in QA. Identify where an issue in lifecycle is. Good. Add. Yeah, there we go. Not sure why it wasn't showing up previously. I didn't do anything different. All right. So now this is my cycle. This is my sprint. So every day in the morning, right, when the Scrum Master is doing the Scrum meeting, the Scrum Master would have this opened up. So what happens is, in my planning meeting, I take one user story at a time. I open that user story and I walk them through the story. What is it that I do next in this? What do I add in this story now? What do I add in this story? Think, what do I do in the planning meeting? Come on. We discussed it this morning again. We did a recap. When I'm doing the planning meeting, I walk through the development team of the user story and I also do something else. What do I do? Do I add a story point to the user story? Yes, I do. So there is over here, there is a place where you can add a story point. So let's say I want to make this as a number 3. Assignee. I want this to be assigned to, right now it will be to developer 1. So there is developer 1, I'm saying you're going to assign, you do this work. Now, another thing that you may do in a planning meeting is, this is really, really detailed. You may not want to talk about this, but you should just know this. You also want, for every story, you want to create task. And what are the things that needs to be done? What are tasks? So in order to do this story, what needs to be done? So number 1, implement code. Number 2, create test cases. Number 3, execute test cases. I'm just telling you some basic tasks. So these are the tasks that needs to be done to complete this story. And that should be it. That's all. That's what you do in the planning meeting, and then you close it. Now, once the planning meeting gets over, now let's say if you are developer 1, and if you are going to be working on that user story, what are you going to be doing? You simply drag that story in development. So currently this is in development. Now once the development is complete, you move it to ready for testing. They'll have to change some statuses for us to be able to keep moving. Ask your project. So there are some settings which needs to be changed, which I'm not familiar with, but ideally it should allow you to change it to ready for testing. Then the tester will pick it up. They move it to in QA once they are in QA, and at the end of the day, it goes to done. Weird. All right, so any questions on how this flows in Agile Scrum process? So on Friday, on the last day of the sprint, not on Friday, the last day of the sprint, all your user stories will be in a done status. So when you're demoing the user stories, you want to demo the stories which are in a done status. Any questions? So this is Jira. Another tool is Rally, which pretty much works exactly the same way. And even if you encounter a third type of a tool, that too will work in exactly the same way. Any questions? All right. So that's everything you want to know with respect to Jira.